Jenny, Korn, thank you for coming to the Epoch Times Espanol. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here in Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, and to have been speaking on the stage at the CPAC Latino for the first time. It was wonderful to see about 800, 1,000 Latinos in the audience.
It is historic, and also your role at the White House is historic, Jenny, because you are the first Latina in that kind of position. And what is the faith office, so the Hispanic audience can understand what Trump is doing from there?
Yes, so thank you for giving me the platform to talk about it, because it is the first time ever newly created historic White House faith office in the West Wing as a direct report to President Trump. There's been initiatives before, there's been other offices that are away from the White House, but not right there, right underneath the Oval Office, and be able to be elevated by President Trump, because people of faith are so important to him in America, and we believe that the government, that faith should be a part of government, not that they should be discriminated by the government.
What does it mean as a Latina to be there in that position?
Yes, kind of like what you were saying to me as a Latina, other Latinas look at me and see that I came from East LA, from very humble beginnings. My mother born in Guadalajara, my grandparents barely a 6th grade education, but they worked so hard, and they gave me the American dream. They allowed me, I was born in East LA, and who would think that this little girl from East LA would go on to college and then go on to serve not once or twice, but now this is my 3rd time serving in the White House. And so I just hope that I could be a role model and show other Latinos and Latinas that if I could do it, they could do it. And so that's what I hope that they get from me being in that position.
And it's so nice that you say that your parents gave you the American dream, because it seems like in your role, you're giving other people their own American dream, because you have been very open with the Hispanic religious leaders to be able to go to the White House and talk to you and tell you this is what the Hispanic community is concerned, this is what they want to know, and what better than doing it on the White House and receiving that briefings. Can you tell us a little bit more how that works?
Well, first of all, Latinos are going to be 1/3 of the population by 2050. We are the fastest growing community in the whole country. So it's important for Latinos to participate, but it's also important for the White House to reach out to the Latino community. And so at the White House Faith Office, we make sure that at every meeting, every briefing, meetings with the president, prayers with the president, that we include Latino pastors, priests, even rabbis. So if you're a Latino and you are a faith leader, we are making sure to include them. In fact, one of our first briefings with 100 Latino leaders was with the Latino community. And so it just warms my heart that we are including everybody. And I always tell people, the White House Faith Office is not the pastor of the White House. We're not the theology office. We are there to give people of faith a voice in their government, because far too long the federal government has actually discriminated against people of faith, not being able to get grants, not being able to have their religious liberties upheld. And so we're there to protect their religious liberty and to give them a voice, and Latinos are a big part of that.
Exactly. And tell us a little bit more about the plans that President Trump has of implementing this to every department of the government.
Right. So not only do we have the White House Faith Office in the West Wing, but we also have employees in the Executive Office building, and we're going to have faith directors in every department. So you think of Treasury, you think of Commerce, you think Department of Defense, State Department, you can go on and on. We're going to have a person of faith in each of those departments to make sure that people of faith are represented, also the policies represented in those departments. And so we're about halfway there of hiring, and it's very exciting to see as people come on. Because President Trump is so active and so busy, it's hard to remember that we've only been in office less than 6 months. So we have 3.5 more years, and we're going to do so much more on religious freedom, religious liberty, and making sure people have a voice so that they, one example, those in the military, the Navy SEALs, during COVID, they asked for a religious exemption on COVID. Biden administration said no, and he basically took them out of the military. They had to either get the vaccine or leave the military. These are people who have dedicated their whole lives. President Trump comes into office and he rescinds that. He says, if you want to come back in the military, we'll bring you back with back pay, and we will let you have those religious exemptions.
And when it comes to COVID, religious pastors were also also the churches were closed, and they were almost obligated to not preach.
If anybody thinks that we don't have a problem with religious freedom, just remember COVID, when the government said we're going to shut down your churches. Even in California, where I'm from, our governor tried to shut down 10 people in a house doing Bible study. That is the heavy hand of government. President Trump said, I don't like the way this is going. He tried to open the churches as fast as possible. And we also need to remember that while the churches were closed, the marijuana shops and the strip clubs were open. So we need to make sure that we show that churches are an essential part of our lives, and that never happens again. And it will never happen under President Trump's watch.
And Jenny, you might be the closest Latina to President Trump. Why does he care so much about religious freedom?
First, President Trump, why he cares about religious freedom. One, he is a man who believes in God. He believes in Jesus. People don't realize it because he doesn't, talk about it all the time, but he was brought up in Sunday school. He went on a regular basis to Sunday school and even would go to Saturday school. One of his most prized possessions is a Bible that his mother gave him. He grew up with his father taking him to the Billy Graham crusades and listening to Norman Vincent Peale. So faith has been a very big part of his life since he was a child. For those who think, he's just using this for political reasons, absolutely not. And then he met Pastor Paula White, who's his pastor, 24 years ago. He was watching her on religious TV. So before he was ever president, 24 years ago, he was watching Christian television. And so that it's a rich history there. And overall, President Trump just believes in freedom. And we need that freedom. People of faith are Americans too, and we need that freedom. So that's why he believes in it so much.
And you have a Latino voice there. And when it comes to religion, I think it's part of our DNA. It's part of who we are. Now that you're closest to Trump, what would you say for the Hispanic audience to give him a little bit of how is Trump?
Right.
Kind of like backstage at the White House.
Well, I love President Trump as a leader, but as a man, as a person. I met him 9 years ago in Trump Tower when I brought a group of Latinos to meet with him. And he was so gracious and so welcoming, and he really wanted to hear from us. And that's how he is with every community. And he loves, like I said on stage, he loves the Latino community. He's very funny, but he's very smart, and he knows a lot of details. So like just what happened in Iran and Israel, he knows all the details about the bomb, the this, the that. Like he knows what he's talking. He's very smart, and he cares about people, and he loves to pray. So when you see those pictures or videos of him praying with pastors or faith leaders, that's real. It's not for the cameras. He does that on camera and off camera. And I'll leave you with this little nugget at the last. He brought in these two beautiful cherub angels and put them at the ceiling of the Oval Office. And so whenever anybody comes in, he points out the angels and how they're looking over the people, looking over him, and truly he knows that because of God, he's there.
Jenny, thank you so much for sharing this, and I hope this is not the last time we sit down and talk, because your story is also amazing. So let's consider this like a part one of our conversation. Thank you so much.
Un placer. Gracias.
Gracias.